big focus on nitrates and less being spread over New Zealand.
Yeah, the problem's not that hard. Kidneys have got a job to do, which is to get rid of excessive protein. If we pour more protein, and every bit of research that I've seen says that we don't need any more than 18% protein, which on a herbage test is about 2.8% of nitrogen in a standard herbage test that a farmer would see. And yet the figures showing for lush growth are between 4 and 5. So that means 30% protein. So the solution to our leaching problems and environmental problems is not reducing cows, it's actually reducing protein levels. At 30% protein, a 300 cow farm on 100 hectares has got an extra roughly 71 tonnes of urea, which the cows don't need, so therefore they excrete it. And when you come back and you start looking at that excess over, you end up with leaching around 90 kilos a hectare, roughly, as a guideline. If you reduce the protein levels and you increase the energy in the grass, and you get the grass to grow naturally, then your leaching comes back to less than 30. We don't really have a problem. So that means getting your nitrogen levels in your pastures down to about 3.2%. Now what happens is the panic button goes on and people go, I've been told to get this level to grow the grass. If you don't have biological support for grass growth, in other words, there are certain groups of organisms in the soil that produce growth stimulants for the plant. If you don't have that, then you have to pour nutrients on at high levels to try and get growth. But if you do, you can get down at 3.2%, which is bringing the leaching right down, because the extra that the kidneys are getting rid of is not so concentrated, and you can grow more grass. So
The first question that people are going to be saying is, yeah, right, but how?
Well, there's been going on for a long time around the world in pockets, and it's growing. But here we have a situation where we have pretty stubborn thinking towards nutrients. Nutrients, that's been drilled into our heads. But we use certain biological products that we manufacture, and we've had independent testing on. We've done 40 field trials. So scientifically you could say that we've actually got some pretty good evidence to say that this stuff can grow more than urea. After that, as the biological systems in the soil begin to multiply, we can reduce the inputs hugely. There's a process called mineralization, which is in every standard textbook, which brings nutrients out of large reserves in the soil into the available plant pool. And that means the plant can get at it, but we don't end up with the same leaching losses and runoff losses from phosphates and nitrogen, etc.
You've been banging your head against the wall for about 17 years. How are you going to change the habits of 4 generations?
I'm not sure we're going to. But the problem is at the moment, and it's really clear to some of our scientists who are not paid by or supported with corporate sponsorship money. And that's a massive problem, because you end up seeing the science and you go, well, that's only going to have one outcome, which is going to support the corporate still. And that's part of the problem with paying. All we can do is keep offering a solution and hope that the farmers will see that we're not trying to put a noose around their neck with one hand and trying to show them a positive way with the other. And that's really what's been going on for 20 years. We've known about the leaching problem for over 20 years. And we know that from science from a long time ago that protein levels affect the outputs, and that's what the kidneys are for. They get rid of it. And yet nothing has been said to try to stop us getting to a point where the rivers are getting so deteriorated with things like cyanobacteria, which are shockers. Nothing's really been done, and yet we've known about it. So the people who have been wise to the problem have remained silent. And I don't see that changing. So we're trying to get a point across. We're a small voice, but I know that we make far more sense than what has been done so far.
The other thing, excuse me, the other thing I guess is that the regional councils are bringing a big stick out and saying, this is legal now, you cannot put X number amount on there.
Yes, I see Environment Southland are going to lead the way there, I think. They've got a bit more courage than Environment Canterbury, and
A bit more courage.
I think Environment Canterbury are just rather pathetic with what they're doing, but they know the solution. This is the other frustrating thing. When you talk to some of the people in there, they know the solution, but the commissioners don't want to go in that direction. So you go around different parts of it.
Is this a popularity thing? They want to be voted back in again next year?
I don't really know. I really don't know, but some of the people I've spoken to do know what the answer needs to be done, and yet they're being hamstrung to actually proposing those solutions by directions that commissioners want to go in versus what actually really needs to be done. So
The other point I'd like to make
controversial statements today.
Yeah, it is actually. Yeah.
But it's really frustrating from my point of view, and what it does is that unless we actually go in the direction that we really need to go in, we get every other solution which is not going to solve the problem. Fencing off rivers that haven't been a problem from dryland cattle for 100 years. All of a sudden they've got to be fenced. Every cost to the farmer that doesn't really have to go in there. There's still some good things going on. We have to fence off some things, but unless you get protein levels under control, you can go down to 2 cows a hectare, you'll still have 47 tonnes roughly of urea being lost, and yet at 3 cows with low protein you'll have 16 or 17. It doesn't solve the problem by reducing cow numbers. We have to solve the protein problem.
The interesting thing is that the younger farmers now are probably more susceptible to listening to other things.
Yes, the sort of below 30-year-olds, if they've not been too ingrained by our institutions, are listening. The 40 to 50-year-olds tend to be, unless they've got their own farms, extremely blind and dollar-driven entirely, and not listening too well. Over 55, they listen quite well. The problem is in my age group.
Nothing I can say to that, Scott. Thank you very much indeed. Yes, he is the problem child.